So today's video, we're going to be talking about the origin story, my origin story. I feel like there's going to be quite a lot of crossover from the TikTok page, which I talk about a lot of mental health stuff, a lot of the ideas and principles that I use through my life to interface and make it through this crazy world and this human experience. So I thought that it would only be fitting to have a longer form video where I talk about my childhood, some of the things that have shaped the person that sits in front of you that you watch on your screen. If you have come over from the TikTok page, then welcome. If you were interested in seeing the type of content that I'm posting on the TikTok page, you can find me at Reese Healy. And there is a lot more short form, bite-sized pieces where I talk about my experiences, some of the things that I deal with through my life, also in the day-to-day and how we manage those things. If you know me or if you watch my content, then you would know that I'm someone who deals with a bit of abandonment trauma. This comes from super early on in life. And so this video, I want to talk about some of those aspects to just make it make sense as to why I think the way I do and why I have to be on my healing journey in order to operate properly as a human. So let's go all the way back to the beginning. I was born on the 9th of September 1995 in London in the UK. My mum was 16 when she had me and my dad was 18. So there could be problem number one. I was born to children who were figuring out the world as it is themselves. They were definitely not ready to have a child of their own, but hey, I can't change it and I wouldn't, because otherwise I wouldn't be here. The first 3 years of my life is a little bit unknown. Love my mum to death, but she is not particularly somebody who's going to be forthcoming with information about those periods of time. My dad was not around very much at all. Things that I have learnt about that period of my life, there was a lot of infidelity, there's a lot of domestic violence, drug use, alcoholism, etc. My mum being a child herself, wanting to have her adolescence and childhood, she would leave me with her friends who were her friends, but to me, a baby, were strangers. And even sometimes I would have been left alone, which is kind of the very start and core of the issues that I talk about on my various platforms. That is where the abandonment started. Dad not being there, and there's also abandonment happening through mum wanting to live her life and leaving me with people that I didn't know, or leaving me by myself. So the first 3 years is this unknown period where we don't actually know what happened in that period, but I do know that when I was 3, my grandmother, so my mum's mum, decided to move to Australia to marry someone that she had met. And at that point she was like, okay, I'm gonna take him with me because this is probably not gonna end well with what's going on here. It's crazy to me that even at 29 years of age, I still receive new information about that period of time, things that happened, situations that went on. And at 29 years old, I think back and go, wow, how am I learning about this now? And how can we not know that that obviously would have messed me up a little bit? The first 3 years of your life are where a lot of these foundational ideas are starting to develop. And so for that first 3 years to be so turbulent for myself explains a lot to myself now. When I think about the ways that I am, the things that I deal with, it all makes a lot of sense. When I moved to Australia, I moved into quite the opposite lifestyle. So when I arrived in Australia, my grandmother who had taken me in, her new partner was quite wealthy. And so I went to a very, very prestigious school, lived in very nice houses. Anything I wanted was given to me. Still had no father in my life. Even my granddad, my non-biological granddad, my grandma's partner, there was also a lot of alcoholism, infidelity going on there as well. So my father figure role was never filled by someone who played it well, if that makes sense. But he definitely gave me a much more fortunate life up until around 14. So 3 years old to 14 felt like a normal life. The other aspect that came in at that period of time as well was moving to Australia. There's not many black people here at all, especially on the Gold Coast where I moved to. There's no black people here. I'm still the only black guy I know here. And so in later life, being able to look back and reflect, I can also see where that played quite heavily into the dynamics that I face now, being different, being an outsider here, not having that connection to culture. I still don't really have that connection to culture. I don't have a relationship with any of my Bayesian side of the family, Bayesian being Barbados. So the culture there is very different. Like I'm essentially an Australianized white guy per se. Everything I know is that side of the culture growing up in a very white place, which I didn't realize had an effect on me until this period of my life where I became a lot more aware of myself and the things that I deal with. And that was something that came out a lot more. I was fortunate that I didn't really even experience that much bullying in school around it. There were some moments here and there, and even outside of school there's moments here and there. So it wasn't something that was so like in my face, glaring, that there was a big disconnect there. Like definitely something that I felt residually the whole time and didn't realize until later actually did have an impact on me as well. Just the displacement, again, abandonment trauma a little bit, because just not being around my culture, around my people, not understanding that side of myself. When I was 14 is when I started becoming interested. Well, it was before 14, it was when I started becoming interested in girls. But 14 is when I actually started seeing people having girlfriends, and obviously didn't realize at the time, felt like a normal experience. But that is when the attachment issues really started to show themselves, because now I had these other people that were coming into my life that I cared a lot about, had a lot of strong feelings for. That's what kind of awakened that anxious attached side of myself, because now I had a place that wasn't family to put it. I remember teachers in school telling me and telling my family in parent-teacher interviews that I was girl crazy, my whole life revolved around girls. Nobody really understood at that time. Nobody was thinking about trauma then, or abandonment trauma, etc., etc. So it just seemed like it was a part of my character that I was obsessed with girls. But in retrospect, moving forward, being able to look back, I was honestly just trying to find somebody to fulfill that mother role. And I did have a mother. My mother was in and out. She never really lived with me, with my grandma, but she was always in and out. But she was dealing with a lot of her own things, again, alcoholism, etc., that made her unavailable and not available all the time, especially in that crucial period of life. My grandmother as well, who was playing the role of my mother, experienced a lot of the same things, a lot of alcoholism, a lot of not being aware of her own makeup and her own things that were affecting her, and then that snowball effect of that trickling down onto myself. Her not being able to express or process what she was experiencing through her life and her traumas, and then that being kind of taken out and put down onto the next source, which was myself. That mixed with the aspect of the infidelity in her own relationship and her own traumas, also her having to raise my mum before I was born. My mum is very anti-authority, does not like being told what to do, which caused a whole lot of dynamics for herself and my nan in their relationship when they were growing up. Again, I feel like every couple of months I find out a new crazy situation that played out between the two of them, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, like, that's wild. And to think that that doesn't have a residual ripple effect in all of our lives even till today is crazy. But just like very, very dysfunctional, very, very disjointed. My grandma's partner then left the family. Another instance of abandonment trauma, started his own new family. Again, power to him, everything happens the way that they're supposed to, but that is another instance of abandonment trauma. Meanwhile, while this is all going on, I am suppressing all of these feelings through the scope of girlfriends. I am one girlfriend into the next girlfriend, into the next girlfriend, anxiously attached to the point where these are young minds. I'm talking about 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds that we have no idea what we're wanting to do. Very rarely are you still with a person that you were with at that age. So they were just developing, growing, figuring out what they want. They're in a very young relationship. They decide they want to go try something new. So that means that they want to separate from me. And that is when the anxious attachments really came out. And I had moments when I was younger, which just, it felt like my world was coming to an absolute end because one of these girlfriends would be leaving me and I would waste no time at all and end up in the next relationship very soon after. Like sometimes even like a week or 2 weeks after, I would have something new going on. Or if I could sense that something was going wrong, I would preemptively be looking for the next thing, because that's something that people with abandonment trauma tend to do. If you feel like there's something going wrong in your current connection, you start looking for the next one, which is something that played out a lot more detrimentally, caused a lot more damage as I got older into my older relationships. From 14 to 24, it's just back to 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 back girlfriends. Never by myself. When my grandma's partner left the family, a lot of his resources and money went with him. So I went from being the broke kid in London being cared for by his child mother to rich kid in Australia, wanted for nothing, got everything I ever needed or anything like that, back to being the broke kid. But this time there was a lot more damage that had been done to my grandmother. And so the alcoholism and her, I don't want to say emotional abuse, but I will say that all of the pain that she was experiencing had to channel to somewhere because she wasn't processing it herself. So it had to channel to somewhere, which was me, which ended up in a lot of disconnection between the two of us, a lot of fights, a lot of this. It just was not pleasant at all. I spent a lot of time living out of home with the chain of girlfriends that I had, just trying to avoid the family situation by any means necessary. As soon as I could, when I was 18 years old, I moved out of home. I never went back. To this day, 29 years old now, I've never gone back and lived at home again. There have been some times in the middle where I spent some time back there, more so when I was in a bad situation myself. But every time that happened, it would be like a week, 2 weeks, until me and my grandmother are clashing again because of that old dynamic of I'm expecting her to use me as a boxing bag, so I'm waiting for it. As soon as it happens, there's a big explosion. We go our separate ways. We don't talk for a long time. Same with my mum. My mum tends to do that as well. The turning point for myself was when I was in a much more serious relationship, which ended a year ago, where all of these issues that had been packaged and suppressed and held down for so long really started bubbling to the surface. So the last serious relationship that I had, which ended a year ago, it ended because I had this deep void in myself, the missing piece of consistent, stable parental love. And that is something that I found that I was looking for in these girlfriends, which is why I always had one, which is why there was never any break in between them. I was trying to fill a void in myself with these people. Got to a point where, because I hadn't been addressing it myself, even the presence of that person, someone there to look after me, wasn't satisfying me anymore. I still felt like I was missing something. I still felt like I was missing mother's love, parental love. So how do I get more of that? Well, maybe I need another girlfriend. Maybe I need more. And so that's what I started creating in my relationship, which is really sad because it was a beautiful relationship. And hindsight is always 20/20. And I wish that I'd known the things that I know about myself now back then. But again, can't change anything because I wouldn't be the way I am now had this not played out the way that it did. But I was in a beautiful relationship, but I still was not feeling fulfilled. I was still not feeling whole. So I thought that seeking more of that kind of connection would be the answer. So I pushed for me and that girlfriend to open our relationship, which was the worst thing I could have ever done. We opened the relationship. When the relationship was open, it was no holds barred. She even went away. She went overseas for the duration of the open relationship, and I went off. I went and did my thing and tried to seek what I was missing and fulfill and get as much of this attention as I possibly could, which I found was very damaging to my own self. The way that I felt about myself. You would think that having all these people interested in you would make you feel good, but I never felt more empty or hollow in any other period of my life. Just so many meaningless connections, all while doing a lot of damage to my partner, the person that I loved, seeing the effect that it was having on her, but I was selfishly just trying to fix myself without actually looking inside myself and doing any of the real work required to actually fix something like this. I learned so much about myself while I was in that open relationship in that time period, especially when I met someone who, in all of my relationships, I'd always been the one that was being looked after by the other person. When I was in the open relationship, I met someone where that dynamic was actually the opposite. So they came to me for more, and I was the one who was older than them with a lot more experience than them. So they were able to lean on me, lean on my experience. That made me feel really good. That was a new feeling that I definitely noticed hit me in a different place, because all of a sudden I was the caretaker, and I've been missing that dynamic through all of my other relationships. I was the one getting taken care of, and all of a sudden I was the one that was providing more to this connection. That made me realize how important it is to be able to be solid in yourself so you can caretake. I don't think that I was actually in the right place to caretake through that situation. A lot of it was because that new connection was quite short. I think it was easy for me to play that role for the short time that I was involved with that person. But I think over time that probably would have disintegrated, because again, I still hadn't done any of the actual work on myself. I was just playing a character that was fulfilling that need for that person, which was then in turn making them rely on me, making me feel special. I know that would have crumbled, but it did wake me up to that dynamic, and that those dynamics were possible. When my partner came back from overseas, we decided that we were going to close the relationship. So we did. We went back to monogamy, just being her and myself. But this new box had been opened in me, and I went back to being the one being cared for, because that's how our relationship was. Obviously, I had the power to change that, but that requires the inner work that I, at this point, still hadn't done. When it went back to that, I felt like I was missing that caretaker dynamic. I was missing that. I felt good in that. So behind my partner's back, I rekindled that connection and then begin to start seeing that person on the side. Even though I'm meant to be monogamously in this relationship now I essentially have 2 girlfriends, and I'm seeing them both at the same time. The new girlfriend knows about the old girlfriend does not know about the new girlfriend. And there was a period of about 2 months where this was going on, and that was absolutely draining to me. Like, it just was not it. The whole time I'm trying to hide this massive secret. One girl thinks that I'm happy in this relationship with her. The other girl thinks that I'm about to leave this relationship for her, and I don't know. I can't make a decision which way I'm gonna go. I'm kind of like, I just want to string them both on and live the best of both worlds, because that's making me feel good right now. Again, suppressing everything. But it got to a point that was so tiring. It got to a point that there were multiple opportunities for me to be honest and open up to my girlfriend about what I was doing. And a lot of those opportunities I didn't take, but it didn't actually take me that long to get to a point where I am exhausted hiding this lie. So then I tell the girlfriend about what's going on. And instantly she's like, okay, I'm done, I'm out of here, leave. Rightfully so. Kicks me out, and that makes me spiral immensely, because I didn't want the new relationship. I knew that I felt more secure, I felt safer and more secure with my girlfriend who was caretaking for me. I didn't really want to leave the relationship. I just wanted the best of both worlds. And then she kicked me out, and she pushed me out, rightfully so. That made me spiral, because that was my safety, my security abandoning me. That is where the abandonment trauma flared up the worst that it ever had. And I was in a super, super dark place. When that happened, I had checked out. I decided that, you know what, I'm sick of feeling this way, not understanding why I'm feeling this way. I want to unalive myself. And I can say with confidence that the reason that didn't happen is because even though I had hurt that girlfriend so bad, she could see the signs. She could see that I was not in a good place, and she did not leave my side until she saw that I was coming out on the other side of it, because I was gone. I was checked all the way out. There was a night in particular when this flare-up was happening, and I remember I was trying to run away from her because I wasn't going to do anything in front of her, but I had made the decision that I was going to. She could see that, so she's like, I'm not leaving your side at all. I'm not going anywhere. I'm following you around until you calm down. And she did. The next day, she got in touch with the hospital and with the police, and they came pick me up because I was definitely not in a good spot. It would have taken a light breeze to make me spiral again. So she organized the police coming and taking me in and taking me to the hospital to get the help that I actually needed. That was one of the scariest moments I've ever been in. I spent the whole 2 days locked in a confinement unit. So like where people are on drugs and stuff, they put them in there to calm down. They put me in there, just like pretty much like a padded cell, really. Not padded, but a cell. And I did 2 days worth of deep thinking in there. Deep thinking. And it was terrifying. And I just wanted to leave the whole time. And I wanted to be out doing my normal life, doing all my things, and I couldn't leave. And that is when I was having those thoughts of, what is going on with you, bro? Like, is this what you've come to? You've come to the point where you've been locked away in a ward now because of these things that are going on that I could understand that there was something wrong. I just didn't want to look at it until this point, and that's the point where I decided I'm never coming back here. I will never feel like this ever again. I don't care what I have to do. I don't care what it takes. I'm going to fix what is going on inside of me so I never end up in this situation ever again, and I never have to rely on other people ever again. So that was my rock bottom. That was my lowest point. After I got out, I then had to adjust to completely new life. I'd been living with that partner for 4 years in a house together, and I couldn't go back there. I couldn't go back to her. I had to now face my fears, be by myself, be aware that I was prone to repeat my cycle and look for the next relationship, be aware of that, and try and stop that happening, which I actually had some exterior help on that, because when everything fell apart, I actually started looking to the girl, the new girl that I had been cheating on my partner with. I tried to go back to her. I tried to set that up and set the next thing up. But she, thank you to her, at that point decided that she didn't want to have any part in this. So she went no contact and very sternly locked me out, which spiraled me again. Not as bad this time. Didn't ever go back to that place where I was looking for an official way out, but definitely set me on a proper recovery of like facing, I want this person, so I'm gonna have to work hard to get this person back. This person never came back, and thank you for never coming back, because that is what I needed. I needed to spend that time thinking that I would be able to get that person back, because that kept me off the streets. That kept me from talking to new people long enough that I was actually able to start processing some of the feelings that I had and the feelings that came up when I spent time alone, when I didn't have someone. I had to face that fear. I had to face that trauma. And her pushing me out like that forced me to do so. At this point, I knew, because I'd ended up in hospital, that therapy was top of the list of things that I needed to do. So I got in touch with a good therapist. I went through the processes and started therapy. And all of these events that transpired had worked together to shift my mindset to the point of, it wasn't that I felt like I had to do it, it's that I wanted to do it. I wanted to be better. I didn't want to feel like this anymore. So I put a lot of work into the therapy. I put a lot of work outside of the therapy, as in doing my own research, doing my own reading, spending a lot of time meditating, learning the tools that I still use to manage these feelings, even though these feelings don't affect me as much anymore until provoked, which we will get into in another video. Yeah, it really changed my perspective on who I wanted to be. And so that's where I find myself now. Now I am still definitely an anxious attacher, but I have a lot more awareness of my triggers, and I have a lot of awareness and determination that that is not what I want to be. So I spend a lot of time still learning, still processing, doing the inner work, and I will make videos in the future on the actual processes I'm using to do the inner work. But this video was to give you a bit of an overview, an idea of the things that are under the surface that played out to the point that you are now here consuming my content about mental health, about awareness, about attachment styles. It's to give that foundational idea of me and then some of the things that I've been through and the challenges I've faced that made me want to make the changes. So, again, this video is probably all over the place. Apologies for that. Again, this is we have to keep rolling with the videos, keep getting them out. So in time, as we go, as the muscles getting worked, they're going to get better and more concise. But right now, we're just getting the information out, and it's me keeping myself accountable in continuing to make videos. But yeah, we'll leave it at that one today. I hope you guys have a really good day. As always, much love. If you're still here, again, you're a real one. The real ones are here at this point in the video. And yeah, we'll catch you in the next.